I get asked from time to time about winter foraging and what types of wild edibles are available this time of year. If you live in a colder climate like I do and you experience harsh winters, foraging can be a little bit tricky during these seasons. The majority of plants that we can forage for are in a state of dormancy right now, so nothing is growing, everything is sleeping. But there still are some wild edibles that are available to be foraged this time of year, the majority of those being conifers, so pine trees, spruce trees, and firs, just to name a few. Today I'm going to be focusing specifically on pine trees, and I'm going to show you a really cool way on how you can utilize the needles. Pine trees grow mainly in the northern hemisphere, and their identifying characteristics can be a little bit different depending on which specific species of pine tree that you have. However, all pine trees do share general characteristics, so those are what I'm going to share today for identifying purposes. They have needle-like leaves in clusters of 2, 3, or 5. They have woody cones that contain seeds, and they produce a very sticky sap when damaged. The bark can either be thick or flaky depending on the species. When it comes to toxicity, there are no toxic species of pine in my area, however, toxic species do exist. These species include Norfolk Island pine, ponderosa pine, and lodgepole pine. So if you live in an area where these toxic pines are present, you really want to make sure that you do some additional research to make sure that you're not consuming these by mistake. It's also very important that you know how to distinguish between the different types of conifers, because not all conifers are edible. In my area, the most toxic conifer is the yew tree, which is deadly toxic, so it is vitally important that you're able to identify which specific type of conifer that you're dealing with. Pine needles are extremely nutritious, being super high in vitamins A and C, and they also have antioxidants and anti-inflammatory properties. Today I'm going to be taking home some pine needles, I'm going to be doing a little bit of fermentation, and I'm going to make some pine needle soda pop. It's been a few days now, and I think that my pine needle soda pop is finally ready to open. You'll notice that at the top of the bottle there are some bubbles, which is a really good indication that fermentation has happened. The success of making pine needle soda pop will depend on a few factors, the first one being room temperature. So where I am right now, it's wintertime and it's cold outside. I also live in an older home, and the house itself does not hold heat very well. So my internal temperature is very cold. That can slow down the fermentation process, so typically this process takes about 3 to 5 days. I let my bottle ferment for 6 days because my house is on the colder side. You never want to let this ferment for too long, because what happens is the buildup of carbon dioxide can actually cause the bottle to explode if you let it go way too long. So make sure that you're not fermenting this longer than 3 to 7 days, I would say. Another factor that determines the success of your pine needle soda pop is the type of water that you use. So this is very important, because if you use tap water and you're on some sort of city water, most of the time that water is treated with chemicals such as chlorine, and chlorine does kill off the natural yeast that's present on the needles. So without yeast, you won't have fermentation. So if you're using chlorinated water, this might not work very well. Instead, you should be using filtered water or some sort of natural spring water. But before I open up this bottle, I am just going to put a towel down on my table just to protect it. Sometimes when you make pine needle soda pop, you get a result that's very similar to when you open up a commercial bottle of soda pop. You get a slight fizz. Other times you get a result that's very similar to what happens when you shake a bottle of commercial soda pop and then open it up right away. You get sort of an eruption. So to avoid any messes, if that happens, I'm just going to put a towel down on my table. It all just boils down to how long your mixture has fermented and how well the fermentation did. Without further ado, let's open up this bottle. So that was pretty underwhelming, but we did get a big pop, and you can see that we do have a lot of bubbles fizzing to the top of the bottle. So that's a really good sign. And you can even hear the fizz. Now that the bottle is open, I'm going to give it a try. This is apparently supposed to taste very similar to Sprite, so we're going to see how well it compares. You don't have to strain out your mixture before you try it. I just prefer to because there's little bits of debris in here. I didn't pre-wash or pre-rinse my needles before I put them in the bottle. The only reason why I didn't is because sometimes when you rinse your needles or wash them, you're actually washing off the natural yeast that's on the needles, and this can also hinder the fermentation process. So I just decided to not rinse my needles. I got them from a very safe place in the woods. I'm not worried about any chemicals or anything like that. My cat had a sneeze attack. You good? Okay. I'm not getting Sprite, but it is very delicious. So it has a very mild pine flavor to it, but it doesn't really taste much like Sprite in my personal opinion. It all could depend on the type of needles that were used as well, because different types of pine needles will have different flavors. I used white pine in this case, but a different kind of pine might have a different taste. But this one I personally don't really feel tastes much like Sprite. This also didn't end up being as fizzy as I would have liked it to be. It definitely wasn't as fizzy as a typical commercial soda pop, but it was slightly fizzy. This could just be due to the fact that my house is so cold that it didn't ferment for long enough. If I would have let it go for a day or two more, maybe there'd be a little bit more carbonation buildup and it would have been a little bit more fizzy. When it comes to nutritional facts, this natural pine needle soda definitely reigns superior over commercial soda pop. So this isn't sugar-free by any means. You do need sugar in order to create fermentation because the yeast needs to feed on a sugar. But this has significantly less sugar than a commercial soda pop. In this entire bottle, there's only 2 tablespoons of sugar. So this has significantly less sugar, making it a healthier alternative. If you'd rather not use sugar to make this, you can also do this with honey or maple syrup. As long as it's a true sugar, the fermentation will work. This won't work with a sugar substitute such as stevia, because stevia is not a true sugar. The yeast can only feed on something that has glucose or fructose. And as opposed to commercial soda pop, this natural pine needle soda pop does not include any artificial colorings, artificial flavorings, preservatives, or chemicals. You're also getting all of the natural health benefits that pine needles have to offer. So for a bottle of pine needle soda pop, you're getting 3 to 5 times more vitamin C than in a bottle of orange juice. So that'll do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments if you've ever tried making pine needle soda pop before. Let me know if you've tried making it with maybe a different type of conifer. Let me know how successful you were. And let me know if you think that it tastes like Sprite. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.